been about 195 roads that have in fact been issued to the contractor for construction. And just to clarify, when I say that, though 313 roads constitutes the work orders, there's a period between the work orders being signed off and when the contractor gets and start work, perhaps like 2 weeks or 3, as the consultant will fine-tune the design details before works get underway. So 106 roads have been either completed or been paved as we speak, and there's another 89 that are in progress that makes up the 195 roads. Moving on to the next slide. Mr. Hunter mentioned about the waterline component being approximately $5 billion. Our assessment to date has shown that we are going to need additional funding to treat with the waterline because there are in fact pipelines that are popping up as we go ahead and do the works. So we have projected to our parent ministry that we will need somewhere of the order of about $2.6 billion more to treat with pipeline construction as well as materials. Another question to answer from the set of questions that came from Parliament is the subcontractors. And of our 4 packages, we have approximately 26 subcontractors across all 4 packages that are actually working with our main contractor, China Harbour Engineering Company, and the names are listed in the report that we would have shared or part of the presentation if the slides were able to be switched. We also have some photographs from the presentation just to show some of the sample of works that are ongoing, as well as some of the damage. Now, another question that was raised during the set of questions that came to us is if there was any damage from Hurricane Melissa. Just to advise, Chairman, that we actually had the roads that were completed stood up well. There was no problem with those roads. Roads that were, however, under construction where drainage works or base course works have begun, and when the hurricane hits, those would have experienced scoring. The assessment we got from the contractor for the damage is somewhere in the order of about 30 million Jamaican dollars. Not significant as was expected because the roads were well designed and stood up well during the hurricane. So by and large, the contractor would have experienced some slowing down during the passage of Melissa. The contractor also assisted us in clearing roads after Melissa, and the contractor has resumed works early this year and is pressing ahead. He's scheduled to complete the works by April of 2027, which is a year from now. And we're working closely with the contractor to try and realize this as much as is possible. So that in a nutshell, Chairman, you had also asked in the submission about the status of the roads per constituency. We have in fact provided that for each constituency with the list of 10 roads and the activity of the status on the right column, the value of the projects, and also the length of each road as was requested, reflecting each constituency. Just one quick correction, that is the table that was provided actually at the top right-hand corner indicates January 2026. Just want to correct that to reflect April 2026. That should be reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunter and Donna. I'm going to exercise Chairman's prerogative and ask 1 or 2 questions and then open the floor to members. In this, first of all, just to understand the arrangement, you have Czech, you say, as the winner of all 4 packages, and then there are 27 subcontractors distributed across the regions or across the island where corresponding to the particular packages. So Czech is not the actual contractor. I mean, they're the contractor of record in terms of they're responsible to you. But in terms of doing the work, it's all done by these 27 subcontractors.
Chairman, members, it's very important to understand. It's a good question. The contract is between Czech and the government of Jamaica through the permanent secretary representing the government of Jamaica. So those are the parties to the contract. The NWA, the CEO of the NWA is the engineer on the contract. That's me. I'm not a party to the contract. I'm a participant in the contract. It's a standard FIDIC contract, and FIDIC is very prescriptive. And one of the stipulations of FIDIC vis-a-vis subcontractors, it says the main contractor is responsible for the actions of the subcontractor. So the client does not go beyond the main contractor. So the entirety of the relationship is between the client and the main contractor, with the engineer providing the guidance. So although subcontractors do exist, the subcontractors have no legal status independent of the main contractor. So we look to the main contractor to undertake the works. It's entirely at his gift, and we look to the main contractor to remedy any defects. So that's how the contract is structured.
So I understand the legal structure, but let me just contrast that with what I experience on the ground as an MP. I don't interfere. I don't see anybody other than, say, Albion Works, which you have there as the first named subcontractor. And they have been doing, I think, executing all the contracts so far that I'm aware of in southern Manchester. So that's the only interface as an MP that I have. I get a letter, I think I get a letter, an email from NWA saying such and such a...
Did you get a letter indicating, requesting you to nominate a liaison officer?
I don't think that was... The letter was informing me of the project and who will be executing it
And
the time frame.
No.
I believe the request for a liaison officer may have come from the contractor. I'm not clear. Either from the contractor, it may have come from
It's from the contractor, the main contractor.
And that is, but as far as the local community is concerned, they would only interface rather with the subcontractor. I'm just telling you my experience in southern Manchester.
Okay.
So in other constituencies, is it that the contractor of record also does execution of contracts, or is it just...
Yes, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
So it's a combination, the actual work is executed by, in some cases, subcontractors, and in some cases, the main contractor.
Yeah, and Chairman and members, this formulation is not just for form, it is for substance. And I have led enough adjudication, negotiation with contractors for claims on the contract to know that it is very important that we maintain the legal construct, because a subcontractor, one of the other recitations of FIDIC is that the engineer or the subcontractor cannot change any of the terms and conditions under the contract. So although we understand that local communities will, in fact, have a narrative here from the main contractor, and I will quote, he said, when we start a new road from time to time, we got obstructions from political side, either from local residents or MPs themselves, about the road or a section of the road not desirable for them. These often cause months of delay. Again, these observations will invariably be translated into a claim for additional monies. And that is why we have to be really, really circumspect in terms of the relationship between the different parties and the contractor. So for legal purposes, as well as for good order, the client sticks with the main contractor.
Okay. So if an MP, for example, were to have an issue, who would they raise it with?
Your liaison officer first, and to the best of my knowledge, each MP was written to asking the MP to nominate a liaison officer. So your first recourse would be to the liaison officer, and then the next recourse would be to the engineer staff, me. And I'm always available. I do nothing more than take calls and respond to requests from MPs.
I'll just alert it to one thing and make a suggestion. If you take this committee, for example, 5 of the 6 members here were not the ones who were consulted
Understand.
when the program was conceived.
Yeah.
So a lot of the correspondence may have been to the
The
original
previous-
MP.
Okay,
And therefore, I would just ask, in those cases at least,
Yeah.
that you resend that correspondence.
Again,
to ensure
Chairman,
that everybody is
Again,
in.
Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, in the aftermath of the election, all members of Parliament were informed regarding that operation. And if by chance there was any slip in that, we can remedy that. But to the best of my knowledge,
Oh, well, I can tell you for certain from my experience, it wasn't until I approached the minister that I got the list of the 10 roads, for example. Nobody wrote me from NWA to say these are the list of the 10. I may be an exception, but I'm just saying, just
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Not a problem.
Not making an issue of it, but just saying, just in the interest of. Yes, Mr. Clark. No, you have a point of order. I was just completing a statement. Then I'll come to you. And any other member who wishes would. Sorry. Go ahead.
The point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, whilst I understand that 5 of the members here today are new, came in after the election, we would want to address the situation by making it known that the roads that were chosen were not chosen directly by the member of Parliament, but by the way of consultation with the community.
Okay, Mr. Clark, before you came, all of that was explained to us. It was explained to us.
Mr. Chairman, are you the chairman? I realize that you lose it to your members, them.
No, Mr. Clark, you come late.
And I am
You're
late,
going over ground
Mr. Chairman.
we have covered.
I am late, Mr. Chairman.
You're going over ground that
for
has
one
been
reason
covered.
only, and you know that. We left here 2:00 this morning.
You weren't the only one.
Not me alone, but some of the other members left before I left. I stayed until the completion. So just give me the slack, Mr. Chairman. Please, thank you.
So the second question, in terms of this overarching contractor or contractor of record, and then the process of subcontracting it, would it be fair to say that each level of contractor takes out their contractor profit from the budgeted amounts for those roads? So if you have 2 levels of contractor, then subcontractor who is actually executing the works, then there will be, I'm asking the question, would there typically be 2 levels of overheads or contractors profit, whatever you want to refer to it as, coming out, as opposed to if the one contractor was executing the works? I'm asking about the efficiency.
Again, good question. But how it works in practice, the contract was awarded based on request for proposal with subsequent negotiation. And from memory, so we would have prepared an internal estimate, engineer, for the works. Check from memory came in, I think, at 30% above the engineer's estimate. And because of the provisions for negotiation, a multi-institution negotiating team comprising representative from parent ministry, NWA, Ministry of Finance, I think NWC, negotiated with check over a designated time period, and the contract was actually signed, I think, at what 18% above the engineer's estimate, based on the negotiation. So that, right? So that's the contract sign. Now, implicit in that arrangement is that the main contractor would have had his profit within that, and that is what we recognize. So any overheads to the subcontractor eats into the main contractor's overhead, not the government's purse.
Okay. But so I understand you're saying that, however, it is allocated.
Beg your pardon?
However, that margin is allocated, it's really not of your concern
No.
in a legal sense,
Okay.
because that is a negotiation between the main contractor and the subcontractors.
Right.
But it could have an impact in terms of what is available to conduct the works at the end of the day. But let me...
No. Again, the contractor is obliged by the terms of the contract to construct the roads in accordance with standard specification and design issued to him. Okay.
Is the Wellington Drive one of the...
No.
That's not one of the... But it is it's NWA is doing the works?
It's NWC.
It's NWC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing so means.
And they're including the permanent reinstatement of the service.
Yes, they will.
All right, members, could you indicate those who wish to ask questions? I have Mr. Hines, Mr. Clark, Mr. Newell. Oh, you okay. Mr. Hines, Mr. Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning and welcome. All right, my first question is, does an MP has the option of asking that check does their roads instead of having a subcontractor to enjoy the benefit of most of the resources?
No.
Why not?
Because check is a contractor of record, and the contractor on record has or should have unfettered authority to execute the works in accordance with the design and the specification issued to him by the client. In fact, member, an MP, regardless of how well-intentioned the MP might be, has no local standard in terms of the Spark program, save and except to reap the benefits that would accrue from the works being done. There's a well-established legal doctrine of privity of contract that says if you're not a party to the contract, you have no local standard, in essence. So we're very concerned about persons not being party to the contract, interacting in a way that gives or creates violence to that principle. Because, as I said before, I've sat in enough negotiation and adjudication with contractors who come in with Myers Fletcher and their legal team, and I with attorney generals, lawyers, and contractors are making claims for additional work or hindrance to doing work that they claim arose as a consequence of interactions with persons not party to the contract. believe me, it becomes very, very difficult.
Okay. All right. So from your pronouncements, I can assume then that the only responsibility or duty a member of parliament has is to provide the contractor with a liaison officer.
A liaison officer, and I think it is well established at this stage that where works are being done in a constituency, there's usually a correspondence, and this is the so-called partisan doctrine, that informs the MP that says, dear MP, this serves to inform you that John Brown has been awarded a contract to undertake works of this description in your constituency. Please extend to him the necessary courtesies. That's what the letter says. The interpretation of which is that, from dialogue with the main contractor, MPs can nominate labor. Because, again, it is my understanding, that the government policy and practice, you don't migrate labor from one area into a constituency. But over and above that, the main function of the MP, as I said, is to get the praise for the work when it's completed.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, 2 more questions and I'll allow others to go. You have work. You have named roads here that you said they would have consulted with the community, the Spark roads. I think I get a little parochial now if Mr. Clark will allow me, because this is the only example of Spark, which is the constituency of which I represent. I have 10 roads here, and the budget you have is $313 million to be allocated across the 10 roads, and you have decided to do 5 of the 10. Each road has its own dimensions. How do you arrive at the length of road that you'll do, and who determines which area of the road you'll complete or you do work on?
Okay, so let me answer a question that you have not asked. How did we arrive at the budget in the first instance? Again, from memory, I think Minister Morgan had issued something to all parliamentarians some time ago.
I wasn't here.
Okay. In essence, what happened, we were asked to do a survey of roads in Jamaica, which we did. And so the allocation of funds per constituency was based on a simple formula. Every constituency got $150 million, $200 million, and then based on the road survey that we did, depending on the density of roads in your constituency, there was a top-up based on the proportion, the road density in your constituency over the total amount of roads. That would give you a factor, and the additional sum was allocated on that basis. So that is how the budget was arrived at. And the budget is fixed. So when we come to, once the roads have been identified, we then do the designs, and based on the rates which the contractor indicated in his bid, remember the contractor would have indicated his rates for the different material. And actually, Chairman, members, if you look at a typical road contract, 85% of the value, it covers 6 items which repeat themselves. So once a road is identified, we know the rates that the contractor quoted in his bid. We then do the design, and then we calculate the cost of the road. Now, a couple of things that we strive for. MPs were asked early in 2025 to nominate their 2 priority roads. And admittedly, I think that request was made before your incumbency. But, we operate on whoever is the MP. So 2 roads were selected as priority by MPs at a point in time. So the cost of those 2 roads would then be drawn down from the total, and what remains is the rest that would do the other roads. We try to select roads that will have start at a designated point and finish at an intersection. We don't want to choose a road that finishes in the middle of nowhere. We don't want to choose a road, for example, there's an MP that wanted us to do a particular road, and when we did the calculation based on the money that remains on his budget, it would only do, like 5% of the road, and we said no because, that poses problem. Then the other criteria we use is whether or not the road requires water supply. A lot of MPs, when we say it requires water supply, although they can appreciate the water supply, they want the road to be built as quickly as possible. But we think that it is a greater benefit to society if the water supply.
Clarify, when you say water supply, this is new water supply?
New water supply.
Okay.
New water supply. And in some instances, although initially we were told that this road will not require new pipes, once the construction started, we realized that it needed new pipes.
So I don't think you have answered the question about
How we select the road.
the portion of the road. So you're doing Hope Road.
Mm-hmm.
Who determines what parts of Hope Road is done?
What section?
Yes, what section is done?
Because as I said before, so we look at the money available and we look at the cost of the road. Now, if the money available can only do a small fraction of the road, then we would not do that. And we would do a road, as I said before, from intersection to intersection that gives it a natural end.
All right, from a member of parliament standpoint, when you list the roads, I'm just speaking now from dealing with my constituents. When you list the road, you say that you're doing Guinea Corn Road, Orange River, Longbow, all those roads in Northern Clarendon. The citizens and the members of the community believe that you're going to do the entire road. Because you say in a SPARK program, we are doing 10 roads and we have allocated $13 million. So they think that the entire road will be done. When you start the road, they get excited. And then when they see the equipment moving out of the community and going out, then they start to get disappointed and quarrel. So then just allow me a little.
Sorry.
Then they will then understand when you explain to them that there's not enough money to do all the road. Then they're starting to say, then why didn't they do this part of the road instead of that part of the road? So while you consult with them to choose the road, why don't you consult with them then if you're not going to do all of the road to say which part of the road is best done? I am understanding and I appreciate your engineering skills and knowledge and what you need to do. But when you are packed up and all gone, the member of parliament have to deal with the citizens.
With the people. Yeah.
Yes, I have to live with them and deal with it every day. So I don't know if there's an appreciation for that or if there's an understanding for that. And then when the road is done and the water is running off the road and running off in people's yard and all of those things, I have to find money to build drain to take the water. Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Hines.
So those are the reasons I'm asking all these questions.
Understand. So when you asked the question earlier on what role can the MP play, I was remiss in not saying that perhaps one of the roles that the MP can play is that because the MP knows with perfect certainty what the budget is, the MP can also assist in that communication. Because the truth is that the 10 roads, when they have the community consultation and the 10 roads are chosen, although we have evidence that some MPs announced the 10 roads as 10 roads to be done.
Well, that's what you say.
Notwithstanding the impact of the budget, the fact is that because MPs were asked to choose 2 priority roads back in February of last year, it means that certainly new MPs would have to, that's a legacy that you end up with. So the budget that remains under your stewardship would be the budget minus the cost of the first 2 roads that were chosen. And that's a reality.
Right, but
okay.
But,
so I will just do the last question.
Just the same way you asked a year ago, for the priority for the first 2 roads. I'm not suggesting to change the 10 roads, but I'm suggesting could an MP now tell you what the priority for the next two roads are, or what their priority is?
Okay.
Yes.
Let me
Or,
answer.
you know, with a hurricane intervening, the priority.
The real
no,
have
that's
changed
how-
with the
how-
hurricane. Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I just 1 second.
Go ahead.
Chairman. No, man.
Yeah. Member from
I have
St.
with
James
me.
Central, please.
I have with me. Come in.
No, but you don't need a mic. Your voice is loud enough to.
No, you are disturbing. The hunter going somewhere.
So, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question,
No.
and yes, that is a very sensitive matter. I have with me a compendium of all the correspondence that we have received from every single MP asking for changes to different roads. Okay? To the point, Chairman, where as the engineer, I advise the client that there has to be a certain degree of good sense, engineering judgment, and cost matrix to determine whether a particular request for a change can be accommodated. Because the contract is a live contract. And the time it takes to change your schedule and to do other things, the contractor is sitting down, tallying up his delay, and it's called prolongation costs. He will invoice the government for additional funds for any day that he sits there and his equipment and personnel not being used. So,
But separate from that, there'll also be costs.
Yeah.
Because when you do that variation, you would then have to get an engineer now to recast the new road.
Yeah,
et cetera.
absolutely.
So it's not just
Absolutely.
delays.
Absolutely.
It's technical.
right. So what it is, we were able to accommodate some requests for change early in the contract. But as you approach the end of the contract, it's more difficult. And so we had long discussions at the ministry, at the policy level, on the matter of changes. And we do understand that with a number of new MPs coming in September, you have a fresh eye, fresh view. And we did, I personally met with a number of MPs in my office. The PS did similarly, and we have been exchanging letters. So to the extent that requests for change and prioritization can be accommodated without doing any violence to the contract, we have acceded to that. But there is a limit. And what we ask for is that there be understanding that when we communicate and say a particular request cannot be accommodated, it's not because of malice, it's because of numbers. Now, it is my understanding, and this is not an announcement because I don't have the authority so to do.
So don't do it then.
Since Park seeks to achieve this comprehensive redo of roads, it follows logically that there may be other aspects or other versions of Spark to come. So not everything can be done in this one go around.
I just want to attempt to summarize what you said. It would be difficult to introduce new roads at this point of the contract.
Right.
However, within the 10 roads,
Right.
it may still be possible to reprioritize the remaining
And we have
roads
done
that
that.
have not
And that
started.
we have, yeah.
And so if an MP had that request,
Yeah.
that could...
And we have done that. And we have done that.
And that can still be
Yeah.
entertained.
And I have the evidence. We have done that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I have requested, and it was not granted to me.
Was it a new road or a repair?
Within the list,
prioritization.
yes. When I made the request, then I receive a work order immediately for the next road to start. Conveniently.
No.
But-
Mr. Hines, to be fair, Mr. Hines, a work order means that a road was identified for implementation. Engineers would have spent time designing the road. Engineers would have spent time designing the water supply. All of that would then be put together in our bills of quantities, pricing, contract terms and conditions. So there's no coincidence between your request and you getting notice of a work
There's
order. The work
significant
on the
lead
work
time-
order
significant
the work
lead
would
time
have
would have been
started
spent
long before.
preparing That's
Yeah,
understood.
long before.
I'll take your word for it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. My last question is, as a union person, did you standardize the payments for the work done, whether it be a liaison, a tradesman, or a laborer on the road work? Because
Actually-
I asked the question because the fees offered to the workers
You're talking
is sometimes below minimum wage. And when I press the contractor or the persons on the work, they say that's the rate they get from above and they can't change it. And that's what they've been using. And
So
it
to
is,
answer your question, Mr. You said me as a union person. Actually, it's my younger brother who was the vice president at NW.
no, I am the
Oh,
union.
you mean you?
I am the union. Yes, I am the union. Person.
I know.
No man, I know your
you're in
identity. I know
another
your
context.
identity. I will not misrepresent you. Yeah.
I know in another context. Again, member, it has been my experience, and very hard to refute person's personal experience. When a main contractor is appointed, you stick with the main contractor. Because every time anyone intervenes in the modus operandi of the main contractor, it causes problems. We, on behalf of the government, as I said before, this contract was internationally tendered. The contractor sending his bid. The process allowed for negotiation with the main contractor, and that negotiation was carried out with a multidisciplinary team representing different enterprises on behalf of the government, and a contract was executed between the government and the main contractor. We don't go beyond that. So now in the industry, there's a GIC rate, Joint Industrial Council rates, which obtains in the construction industry. Whether or not Czech as the main contractor subscribes to those rates, that's their business. The client doesn't interfere with that. Now, from a policy point of view, the government of Jamaica may want to make some pronouncement, but certainly within the ambit of a contract, we stick with the prescription of the contract.
I am not getting from you that it is Czech's business whether they pay at minimum rates or not.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying? It is left up to Czech to pay at the rates at which they want to pay?
But Mr. Hunter said it's a standard FIDIC contract.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the FIDIC contract relates to the rates prescribed in the negotiation of the Joint
The bill
Industrial
of quantities.
Council?
Yeah.
No, but isn't it usually there are fluctuations if a new rate
New
award?
GIC okay, so
Right.
I think what has been alluded to, Chairman, the GIC rates, which a lot of the master builders subscribe to, it is not obligatory.
Okay, you're saying it's just a guide, it's not a
Right, it's not
contractual
obligatory.
obligation.
There has been discussion in the past, but again, that goes to policy.
Okay.
We just stick with the contract that has been executed and we implement that contract.
But I think the feedback that all MPs will share with you is that the rates that are offered are not, generally speaking, attractive to the residents.
What it means is that the main contractor will do most of the work himself.
So that's my experience. My personal experience is I try and stay away from getting involved because then people.
Yeah.
Why did you give me a liaison
Minimum
officer?
wage.
He goes out, he gets flag
Exactly.
persons, this, that,
So-
that, and the other, and then when the rates are they consider unfair,
Yeah.
then it comes back to the MP.
Yes.
Not only that.
So in instances where
But when the auditors come to audit, they're going to say the contract started out at $10 and it ended up at $12. And then everybody presumes that that escalation is due to some underhanded thing. No. So we stick with what's in the contract.
So is check required or any contractor required to pay minimum wage or more? At least minimum
No, the
wage.
law of the
That's the law.
country, the law
That's
of the
the law.
country.
But so
check-
where they're paying below
Anybody who
minimum
operates in
wage, how do you
Jamaica
treat with that? Because that has been the
No, no,
experience.
no. Again, as far as I know, minimum wage is the law, and every contractor is obliged to do that. Now, what they pay over and above that, that's
Not
their
above,
business.
below.
So what
well,
you're saying, Mr. Ange, you're
well,
aware of persons
Yes,
being offered
people being below.
well, that would be against the law.
And that would be for
that-
Ministry of Labor too,
That
not
the
for
Ministry
me.
of Labor should be alerted to.
Not
So
for me.
isn't that of concern to
me.
NWA that your contractors are paying below minimum wage?
Concern as a citizen, perhaps, but whether or not I'm sufficiently concerned that I'm going to go and do something contractually, no.
You wanted to add something.
You sure about what you just said?
Absolutely.
Just hold on, Mr. Hines. The PS wanted to respond.
So, Chair and members, I just want to say, Member of Parliament, where there are specific instances, we would want that. Well, as the owner of the contract, on behalf of the government, I certainly would want to be aware of those specific cases so that we can take that up with the contractor.
I welcome that intervention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, there's a follow-up to Member Hunt.
Okay, go ahead. Just if it's a follow-up, make it brief, because there were other people in the line.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want the member to, because I hear mention of person being paid below minimum wage, provide us with the evidence, because the government of Jamaica has a policy in place that you can't pay below the minimum wage. And if so, provide the evidence so that a criminal action can be taken against the person who is paying. So rather than just sit here and say that you know that people are being paid below minimum wage, provide us with the evidence.
That's essentially what the permanent secretary just said. Yeah. Well, you are next, so you don't have to follow up. You can go ahead.
Yes. So just for the record, I am aware of the contractor offering to employ at below the minimum wage. I was called and intervened as a citizen. At the time, I was not member of parliament. And with the support of the member of parliament, I went in and had a conversation. And I advised the contractor that the rate was in violation of Jamaica's labor laws in terms of minimum wage, and further told him that even though I was asked to help him to find labor, I would play no part in it if he is offering to pay below minimum wage. And I threatened to shut down the work site. I did. I threatened to call in the Ministry of Labor and to make a complaint. And my understanding is that if someone is being paid below the minimum wage in Jamaica, that Ministry of Labor would come in, and the effect would be to shut down the site. That is before becoming as a citizen.
Mr. Newell,
Yes, as a citizen.
I don't want you to be misunderstood.
Yes.
I don't want you to be misunderstood. So I want to clarify that you threatened to bring to the attention of the authorities that
Yes.
the law was being violated.
Correct.
And you expected the authorities to.
And this was April, and for clarity, this was April of 2025.
Right.
This was
And-
April of 2025. Now,
Right.
Chairman.
No, but I don't want
Yes.
the word threaten
Yes.
can be misinterpreted or interpreted many different ways.
Right. But
You
I
could
also
threaten to
want take
report,
it- Yes.
or they might think you threaten
Yes.
to use some physical
No. To call the Ministry of Labor.
means
But
to shut down.
But if I may
So
further,
I'm glad. Allow the
Yeah.
person to clarify what
I-
he means.
well, no, I don't think that is recognized in
he's-
any parliamentary. Yes.
And I am asking the member. I am asking the member who is recognized to just clarify
Thank you.
the statement, because I know it is. I know it is subject to various interpretations. So I
May-
want
may I
him to
now-
be very clear.
May I now proceed, Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
So that is one. I would join Member Hines, though, in encouraging any Jamaican who is offered or being paid below minimum wage on any of these sites to also call in the Ministry of Labor and have that dealt with. Now, in terms of the priority roads, the MP priority roads, Mr. Hunter, I attended the 2024, I think it was, consultation at St. Mary High School as a citizen to discuss the 10 roads. And sometime after, when I saw the 10 roads listed on the Spark website, because the Spark website doesn't give any indication that some roads will be attended to and some would not. So as a citizen at that time, I had a legitimate expectation that the roads listed on the Spark program website were the roads that I could expect would have been repaired. And I think that informed certain decisions of other actors. For example, in Islington, where I live, I know the councillor had secured contract, to my knowledge, to work on a road. I think it was Guava River to Pimento Hill. But because it was listed on the Spark program as one of the roads for repair, one of the 10, a decision would have been taken to allocate that resource elsewhere. And I think Jamaicans on a whole have that legitimate expectation, having gone on site and having seen their road listed, whether it is Esho or Thompson Town. And so I'm wondering whether NAA or the ministry has any intention to communicate in a better way what this means. And I know the information on the Spark website has been static. The information that is here is not on the website. So people won't know that only 4 of the 10 road, for example, if they're going on the site. And so I'm wondering if there's any intention to fix that in terms of the communication.
And one of the values that the PAAC's sittings bring to the public is to elucidate some of these issues that may not have been clear, and to give an opportunity to not just members but the government representatives to clarify these issues.
Good observation, Mr. Noel. Yes, at the time of the community consultation, I think I'm trying to remember if the budget was finalized then. I think the budget was finalized subsequent to that, because the controlling issues relating to how much you can do still comes back to the budget. And so one can understand that, yes, in fact, there is an MP who I shall not name, who actually had a nice billboard announcing their 10 roads. But of course, when you apply the budget to the 10 roads, it couldn't do all 10. And we can see that to the extent that 10 roads were identified without the rider of the budget being the constraining factor, it could have given rise to that belief. But I think since then, we have made it known that there is a fixed amount of money in the budget for Spark, and that money can only buy a certain amount of roads.
Now, in terms of the MP priority roads, when I wrote to my then Member of Parliament to find out about priorities, I was advised that a particular road that we thought should have been priority, which was recommended, was not selected even in the 4 because of concerns about pipes. However, the 2 roads which were since selected and where work started in April of 2025 are now still filled with mud. And I think the contractor is trying to source base material to cover over pipes. And I'm wondering, because last year, about April or May, the residents of one of the communities had to call in TVJ to point to the fact that water was bubbling, coming up to the surface, even though the stated intent coming from the liaison and others was that they were going to asphalt the road. And so I want to know whether community knowledge or there was any opportunity, because I heard you mention that NWC is who you contact regarding whether there are leaks. And normally that would sound like the reasonable thing to do. But sometimes NWC doesn't know where the leaks are. But in every community, the residents can tell you where the leaks are. So I'm wondering whether there is any requirement to rely on or to engage community knowledge for the leaks.
Yeah, and Mr. Noel, there's no gainsaying that the more information that we can get and the more input that comes from the community and interested persons helps the process. But I must confess that from a project implementation perspective, given a fixed budget and given a finite time to undertake, because the contract has a finite time, you know, there is a part of us who would, you know, not needing water pipes is nice because it allows you to get on with the business and it allows you to do a road at a lower cost. Once you take the decision that it needs pipes, whether by the NWC's prescription or you've started the works and you realize, for example, I can clearly recall the very first project we did on the spot, the groundbreaking project for Spark was in member Paul Wells' constituency. And the design for that project had no pipes. And, you know, a week, 2 weeks into the construction, we realized that we had to put pipes in it. So that then meant redesign, it meant more costing, and so on. So we do accept that there's a degree of difficulty which is attached to any road that requires pipe, whether we knew in advance or we discover as we do the construction. And it's something that so soon as we have that information, we have to pivot to design scenario 2, which is pipe. Now, the pipe component, China Harbor did get a contract to import pipe material that's coming from China. So there is a delivery issue with pipes. They have to come in. There is also the scenario where while you're waiting on those pipes to be manufactured and come in, we're buying pipes on the local market, which may or may not be the same price as the other pipes. So it's a lot of things that we're trying to juggle to deliver to the community. In St. Mary, you know, my...
All right. Mr. Hunter, I'm going to have to ask you to keep the answers as concise as possible. We appreciate the information, but I know I'm cognizant of having Prof. Shirley here, and we need to get to him and your other. So I'm going to ask Mr. Newell to conclude this round of his questions, and then...
Sorry, you'll ask me to what?
No, just to
Yes,
quickly
no
go
problem.
through the remaining
Mr. Hunter,
questions.
can you... Sorry, go ahead.
And then Mr. Clark and Ms. Burchell.
Can you tell me what the average cost per kilometer has worked out to under the Spark program?
For the local and community roads, $50 million per kilometer.
How does that compare to the experience of NWA in terms of cost per kilometer of the roads that you have managed?
That's
roads.
equivalent because remember, you know, the Spark contract started out with the NWA preparing an estimate of what it costs.
It's the engineer's estimate that would have guided the contract negotiation.
Should I take it then that your internal cost is about 18% below per kilometer?
Yeah, at the time. Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
42 million per kilometer.
Yeah.
Is your internal. And how does this compare to best practices regionally or internationally, if you have such information?
It all depends on the design of the road. So Mr. Downer is the technocrat in terms of road design.
Well, remember, as Mr. Hunter says, it's actually depends on what you're going to do. So we are doing what we call rehabilitation, reconstruction of the road. So the price that we get is standard. Prices depends on the local market, as you are aware. So in Jamaica, for instance, we don't have to import base material. It's available from quarries that we can get material from. We have a certain distance that the material can be sourced from, which are radius of approximately 10 kilometers within. 35 kilometers, we can get the material. There are asphalt plants across the island. So haulage cost is therefore regulated accordingly. So it just depends on those factors that make up the overall cost. And
So
for
our
us
cost
here,
per kilometer is less than regional and global would be then? based on
no,
those factors?
it's a little difficult to say if it's the same as a regional, because if you look at a region, one of the regional entities like Dominica, where they don't have an asphalt plant, their price is quite different from Trinidad that actually manufactures and has asphalt there. So the prices would be stark different between the two. So our price is based on our local and it's considered reasonable because we spend a lot of time developing what we call unit prices annually, tracking the rates and the adjustments nationally, looking at what is happening globally. And so our prices that we have prepared as unit costs are fair, standard, and are reasonable for our local market. And the design that we do is informed that.
So I'll ask one more question, Chairman, and then I'll allow. In terms of coordination of road construction, again, a community, for example, Killancolly, where in another, I don't want to set a period of time because of how long it has been, but at some point they will have paved roads going in. But the Highgate to Dean Pen, where they will traverse in order to get into Killancolly, sometimes it's like a riverbed. So in terms of your decisions on which main roads, not on the Spark necessarily, I'm hoping somebody else will ask about the main road component, but in terms of your decisions on which main roads to do interventions on, are those or will those be informed by the areas that you are doing Spark projects so that there can be a totally different experience in terms of commuters?
Okay, so the Spark is in two components. There's the local road component, and then there's the main road component. The local road component was entirely dictated by the community consultations and input. The main road component is at the gift of the NWA. Those are our roads. So we will specify which main roads to be undertaken based on objective criteria like traffic count, important buildings, facilities, hospitals, schools, connectivity to towns from point A to point B, population, serve, and so on. So there's a 6 criteria.
I think there's a misunderstanding of what I'm asking. I'm not asking about the main road component of Spark. I'm saying an area like Dean Pen, which might not be on the Spark program, but people have to traverse there to get to the good roads. By the time I get to the good road, my tire busts up and mash up. But you have other interventions that NWA does.
Other parts
Will those interventions be informed at all by where you're doing good roads? Because some people call and cuss, you know. You're fixing Dean Pen, you're fixing Killancolly, but the road to get there is so terrible. What are you going to do about this?
Yeah, just in answering that, what percentage of your overall road construction or reconstruction and maintenance program is Spark? Would Spark represent what percentage of it? I can't remember from the budget, but just remind me.
Spark is on the capital side of the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on your
on
maintenance,
the recurrent side, the
so
maintenance,
your entire capital budget is Spark, or you have other?
Well, we have other projects under the capital side of the budget, but on the recurrent side, the Parliament, you have gifted us $5 billion for the whole country for the whole year. That's
$5 billion.
Parliament has voted. So the question is, what can we buy with that?
It sounds like the parable of the loaves and the fishes.
I'm just saying that is what.
I wouldn't want you to lose sight
in
of
the
question
wisdom of
because
MPs, that's what you voted us.
The reason I wouldn't want you to lose sight, Mr. Hunter, is there is and I represent a lot in St. Mary, Portland, and St. Thomas. And there has been a feeling that even of that 5 million pie, we don't see equity in terms of the distribution from it sometimes. We have difficulty identifying equity in terms of the distribution of it, where our needs are concerned. So what I want to know, because yes, you have $5 million, but it's never divided by 63. And I understand you won't, but you have decisions to make in terms of this 5 million. So I just want to know whether any of it is
okay. So, Mr.
will be
Noel,
coordinated.
Just to make disclosure, we are in receipt of your communication in that regard. Got it this week, and we are examining the needs that you have identified.
This is not a parochial matter.
No,
But
it's a
the
consequence of matter.
broader challenge,
Yeah.
Mr. Newell, which most of us here face, maybe with the exception of Dr. Dawes and Mr. Clark, is that the rural areas, based on the criteria of traffic count, population density, etc., the rural areas will always get left behind, and just based on those objective criteria. So, unfortunately, that's our burden to bear.
I don't
Mr.
get
Clark
that,
and then
but
Ms. Merchant.
I haven't received an answer, but I'll yield.
Who is chairing the meeting?
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Who
Go
is
ahead,
chairing the meeting?
Mr. Clark.
Mr.
Your mic.
Chairman, you allow. Anyway, my mic is on. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, I have read. It's a very
No,
good thing that
please,
you have
please,
read.
members, don't waste time arguing. Just your mic
Thank you
is on.
very.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my colleague would have listened to his colleague making a statement of hearsay. And we are at Parliament. And so I am asking the chair to guide the member that if a situation as he speak or as he spoke of, that something of a criminal nature that he witnessed, his duty as a legislator is to bring it to the attention of the authority. And so this morning, Mr. Chairman, I'm asking you again to ask the member to provide the information that he allegedly say happened, or we're going to ask that it be struck from the minute. Mr. Chairman, it is as it is, even though he said that he was on point, it is hearsay until it is documented and bring to forth. 1, 2. Obviously, you don't understand hearsay, so you won't know.
Remember,
Hearsay,
please.
unless there is a paper trail, or you can stand in front of the accused and say, yes, I am saying on record that you did this.
All right, let's.
Mr. Chairman, direct the meeting accordingly, please. Ask the member to present the information in writing to the authority. 2,
You have any
through
questions?
you to the ED, Sir Hunter. Is there a government policy as it relates to the changing of roads that have been named already? Is there a government policy?
Yes, and I will. The PS is the employer. So,
Madam PS,
she's best
please.
to answer that.
So two things, Chair and members. My voice is not cooperating with me today, but I'm trying.
We listen.
All right, so sparks will fly when you're all representing your constituents. And so, we in the ministry, along with our agencies, we really want to work very, very collaboratively with the members of Parliament on both sides of the fence. That is what I will say. I will remind members, having sat here for some time and listened to the discourse, I'm just reminding members of ministry paper, which was recently tabled in Parliament, and I want members to just refresh their memory. It is dated sometime in February 2026. It speaks about the guidelines governing the involvement of third parties and the members of Parliament, the contractors, councillors, civil society groups, community members, and private sector organizations are classified as the third party group in implementing our road infrastructure projects. I want to direct members' attention specifically to paragraph 6 of that ministry paper, and I'm going to read it for you, Chair, if you'll permit me. It says, where challenges arise during project implementation, third parties are expected to channel complaints and concerns through established administrative and reporting mechanisms rather than direct intervention. This ensures that issues are addressed in a structured, transparent, and accountable manner by the responsible implementing agencies. And Mr. Hunter would have alluded to the responsible implementing agencies as well as the role of the ministry in the implementation of these infrastructure projects. In terms of the general policy direction for changes in the work orders, I myself have received quite a number of them, and they come. I consult the minister in charge of works as well as the head of the NWA to see to what extent these requests can be facilitated. We would have said before that we discourage to a large extent the change requests. We would have noted that extensive consultations would have taken place prior to some of the new members of parliament coming in to office. And so we have to have regard for those consultations that would have taken place even in terms of the costs, because as Mr. Hunter would have said, it is a live contract. And the very MPs here and yourself, Chair, will hold us accountable when we are looking at how the projects have complied, how have they adhered to their budgetary allocations. So while we are lenient and we do understand the plight of the MPs, we look at them, the engineers look to what extent the proposal is in keeping with budgetary, implications and timeline for the implementation of the overall project. But generally speaking, we do not encourage these change requests. And Chair, I just want to say that I'm very happy for this opportunity that we're having here just to share and to have a discourse, with members, so that when the change requests are denied, and we've had to do it, and it's both sides of the aisle because we don't see colors. And so you members will understand where we are coming from when we say this is one that cannot be accommodated at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Pierce. And I am happy that you went deep into the answer.
Yeah,
because
we're trying to
Mr. Chairman, you just allow Member Newell. It is not fair, Mr. Chairman, that you give the gentleman 5 questions and you're trying to limit me now.
This is your third intervention since you arrived late.
Mr. Chairman, I asked you a point of clarification, which one of them you didn't give to me.
Anyway, you have more questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Lover of my soul to thy bosom fly.
Think about a question now.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I want to let my colleagues know I have been here for 3 terms. If them continue to try and distract me, we are going to be here. So shut your mouth and allow me to ask the question.
Please focus on
Mr. Chairman, I am happy that the PS would have gone into depth to explain. Because, Mr. Chairman, not because, and I keep hearing my colleagues mentioning Melissa. Sparks is not the only road program. Once Sparks has been designed and procured and is out there, it is not that easy to change. And that's hence I asked the question about the policy.
And we got the
so
answer.
let it be known. Yes, I asked the question, I expect you to get the answer. The very bill that you fight against last night would deal with. I am making my presentation. I can question and I can
You're not
comment.
making presentations here.
The very bill that you fight against last night would have been the bill, or is going to be the bill that is going to deal with the matters of Melissa and the urgency with which you want those roads. You understand? Two, Mr. Chairman, I listened to the ED again, and he made mention of contractors asking for additional sum because of what would have happened in specific case. My question to you now, sir, is there any of that situation in Central St. Mary wherein the contractor would have written to you requesting extra fund because of a delay?
But
There's none.
I'm surprised.
Contractor
Thanks, Ira.
contractor would not specify a particular location. What the contractor will do and how the contract is structured, the contractor first gives what is called a notice of claim. So he advises me to say, I intend to make a claim because of certain circumstance. And then it takes some time to compile the claim because those claims will have to then be examined.
no, it's Dr. Dawes now.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm running this committee, and I have a responsibility to move it along.
Your colleague, and it is in the minutes.
Dr. Dawes, turn on your mic.
You, Mr. Chairman, try to nice it up, trying to get him to say something.
No, Dr. Dawes, do not turn off your mic.
Jamaica,
You are recognized.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Chair. Madam Pace, you appropriately reminded us of the ministry paper. Can you give us the channels, the official channels by which we should be corresponding, raising complaints, making requests, etc., for the record?
All right. So given that the contract, we are really the owner, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development is the owner of the contract. And so certainly if there's a problem with the contractor or wherever, certainly you could write. You could either write to the minister who's in charge of works, or you write to me as the permanent secretary, and it will be addressed. I can assure you. And even if the complaints come to the NAA, they channel it up to us in the central ministry. So there is that joined up approach.
Okay. And this is the approach going forward, and all MPs have been made aware of this?
The ministry paper was tabled.
It was
in
tabled, but it
Parliament,
never
and
stated.
we have the
it never
responsibility
stated
to.
right. I think the responsibility ought to go out because
Yes.
this was an MP-led initiative, even though the consultations were community-based, and we heard about the anecdotal billboard that was out there. MPs owned this. It was used extensively in the run-up to elections, and we, as the MPs now who are sitting in the chairs, we have to report back to the persons who were involved in those consultations. They have not changed. And I believe that the standardization of the communications surrounding projects, it ought to be formalized and letters dispatched to every member of parliament to let them know exactly what to do, how to approach complaints, concerns that they have, given that the ministry paper was tabled recently. Now, I say this on the background, and I can personally speak for myself that I have no issue at all with NAA, Mr. Downer and Mr. Hunter, right, E.G. Hunter. They have been very responsive to me. However, I must speak on behalf of other colleagues who are not here who have expressed interest in understanding exactly how to present complaints. And I'll speak particular for the member from St. Thomas Eastern who raised a concern about the Landtop Road, which according to this list, has drainage works ongoing, but she's saying that there is nothing taking place right now. Whether there's a miscommunication or something, there's a disconnect there with what the MP is seeing on the ground and what is on the paper in front of me. There is also the concern that the Stanton Road to Spring Garden Road was supposed to be started in May, but I see here it's scheduled to commence in July. This would lead, if there's no dynamic conversations taking place through the channels, then it would leave the MP frustrated and the constituents just as concerned, because if it was communicated to them before, if it hasn't started, if the liaison isn't on the ground working, then the channel of communication would not exist between the MP, the liaison, and the contractors and NWA. So I believe that something formal needs to go out, and I would beg on behalf of the member from St. Thomas Eastern that some conversations take place surrounding the concerns that she has.
This table the table you shared with us in the report with the April update, could something like that be periodically, whether monthly or quarterly at a minimum, be shared? Because we know timelines slide, etc. May can become July and so on. But I find this very helpful, even for just the roads in South Manchester. And I'm wondering, I imagine it's updated on a periodic basis. And if it could be shared, I think that would be very helpful.
I just want to say for the record, we have met with Ms. Shaw in my office, I think like 2 months ago, and listened to her thing. So it's not an issue. And the ones that you have alluded to, we'll take it on board. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Ms. Birchall? You weren't finished, Dr. Dawes?
No, one more question. I see so the initial completion date was December of this year, and we're now into March of next year. That's just a few months, but for the majority of the projects, the different packages, we're at best 27.7%, overall 25%. Do you think that you can...
That percentage. Okay, so percentage completion can either be based on physical work or certified value. Physical work is more understandable, but it's more difficult to measure. So as an example, if you lay 10 kilometers of pipeline, the pipe is laid, covered up, it's under the ground, we wouldn't report on that activity until the pipe is tested and it passed the test. So physically, the work would have been done, but because it is not yet passed the pressure test, we wouldn't report. So what we have reported on is certified value, meaning that this is the money that the contractor literally has been paid. And there's a lag time. So, for example, if that pipe then passes the test within a day, the day after it passed the test, the certified value would jump balloon because of it. So it takes a little understanding. Overall, though, of the entire 300 near 400 roads that will be done on the segment 1, we have issued that to the contractor. So the contractor has that. The only component that remains is the main road component. So we think that, given the delays from Melissa.
So within this fiscal year, the local component would be complete?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So we're confident.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hunter, PS, I wonder if you have built in the Spark program objective measures of success and failure, and what would some of those be, your criteria, and how would you assess the progress on the Spark when you measure that against your objectives?
Good question. Okay, so prior to your coming in this morning, Ms. Burchell did indicate that the overarching objective of Spark was to tackle the road portfolio in Jamaica and to carry out a major reconstruction of the road portfolio, largely because a lot of the roads that we have were never properly designed along engineering lines with line of sight, camber for runoff of stormwater. Also, the roads will incorporate new water supply, which is a significant item for the value of land adjacent to the roads. And for the main road component, we'll also have fiber optic ducts for fiber optic cables to be installed that will expand the National Broadband Initiative, which allows for continuity of government. If there's a Category 5 hurricane that takes down everything above ground, you'll have an underground network. So these are all things that we're looking for from Spark. So we would define success, A, to be the construction of the roads in accordance with the design. And the design for the local roads will be different from the design for the main roads, based on things like the weight of vehicle that each road will carry. So, completion of the roads on time, on budget, the inclusion of the support infrastructure, drainage, water supply, fiber optic ducts. Employment would be one, and we've categorized that. Involvement of local subcontractors, that was part and parcel of the Spark undertaking, and that has been achieved. So yes, we do have an idea of what we define, how we'll define success at the end of this.
And you believe that Spark is sparking based on those measures and where we are now?
So just one.
Well, you might want to rephrase that. Let me suggest, what percentage of those objectives have we achieved thus far?
Proportionate to where the project is.
Yeah.
Because largely the objectives that we have set are physical objectives. How many subcontractors utilizing, in fact, in the tender document for Spark, one of the conditions was that the contractor should involve local subcontractors.
Yes.
So that was in the tender document, and it's incorporated in the contract. And the evidence that we've provided here shows the number of subcontractors that have been used.
All right, members, I
So,
want to
just one
move
thing
to
here.
Professor Shirley.
No,
We've got 2
Chair.
hours. So,
No, I'm not through.
no, okay, I'm just saying, let's move quickly through the remaining
Thank you.
questions.
Right. Using,
Realize you're not turning up your mics.
you asked 10 non-questions. Allow me
Please,
to ask one good
please
one.
avoid distracting each other. Let's just.
Mr. Hunter, thank you. Using St. James, the parish, as a case from your report here, I note that there are 5 constituencies in St. James. And in the status column, it clearly shows the progress of the work in these constituencies as measured by the money paid. What is of note is that, if I could pull out one constituency randomly, South St. James. Of the 10 roads identified, only 1 road has had drainage works ongoing as the status. No other road has been touched in that constituency. When you compare it with the others where there is some degree of progress occurring, could we get an understanding as to the priority that goes into getting work started in one area versus another, and why this stark reality for one constituency when compared with the others?
Okay, so again, the parishes that were most severely affected by Melissa would be, as a collateral, consideration be affected in terms of spark, because one of the management decisions that we took is that we suspended work on the spark in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane, and then redeploy those resources towards the clearing the roads. And I think we only got back to full steam late December. So there will be a lag time with some of the work in the most affected parishes. But again, as I said, Spark is a 2-year contract, and the contractor has not yet indicated any desire for additional time. But suffice it to say that what has not yet been initiated will catch up.
My final question, and thank you for that. My final question has to do with the main road component. And I'm speaking again, just randomly thinking of another constituency, South St. James, where you outlined earlier that there is a list of criteria, 6. I noted 4 that goes into the selection of which main road will benefit from spark intervention. 1A, traffic, important buildings, connectivity, population. A constituency like South St. James perhaps would not qualify and has not qualified under even the road patching program that was rolled out recently. It didn't qualify under the GO program or those programs, save and except for the Montpelier Road that started with JSIF before Hurricane Melissa and continued. Not one single road in South St. James has been touched, and it was a hurricane-ravaged constituency. How can we intervene? How can we intervene to see how some priority can be given to a constituency that has been so devastated, where the main road into the constituency, which is Spring Mount, damaged, can't pass, and persons have to go through Hampton to Gutters, which is a precipice, or through Roehampton to Barnet Bush. How can constituencies that have been so devastated by Hurricane Melissa not be prioritized for any of these programs, not the road patching, not the GO program, and now being told that perhaps we may escape the main road distribution because we don't qualify for these sexy things like traffic and important buildings?
Okay, just a clarity.
Hold on, Unite.
Okay. The criteria that I indicated are the usual criteria that we technocrats will use. But the World Bank and these other institutions will tell you there are usually different templates that you apply before you make the final decision.
Okay.
So in general, you start with the objective criteria, and then you can superimpose on those other considerations. That component is still under discussion with the employer. Our job is to make recommendation. We then have discussion at a certain level, and then the final list will be chosen. So the final list has not yet been chosen. We hope to do that in short term. With respect to the other needs of the constituencies, I mean, just as Mr. Noel has done, he authored a nice letter to us asking for assistance.
And I've done the same.
And you can similarly author a nice letter to us.
Done.
And Mr. Downer will come and visit your constituency and see for himself the issues that you have.
Thank you, Mr.
And then
Downer.
we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, there was one final question. I really want to move on to Port Authority now, but since you...
I just wanted to follow up on something that was a suggestion you made that was accepted, Chair, that the report be shared with the House from time to time. I would only ask, though, that for the constituencies, the percentage completion also be included instead of just the text status, so we can get an idea of where.
Is that possible? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, PS, Mr. Hunter. You're welcome to stay if you want to hear the erudite presentation from Professor Shirley. So I never had the privilege of being one of his students. So this might be the closest I get to benefiting from his wisdom. Professor Shirley, you want to take the floor, and we would just, you don't need to move. You don't need to move. You're close enough. Yes, you're excused, Mr. Hunter. If you want, you can come to the front, or if you want to speak from where you are, that's fine, Prof. But it might be more convenient for you to come to the front. Mr. Downer, if you don't leave the chamber, you're going to mash up my meeting, you know. I know every MP. That's of great interest to MPs, particularly rural MPs. So just by way of background for those who may be listening on PBCJ, the reason we invited Port Authority was that during our hearings on the post-Melissa recovery, we received numerous complaints about delays and backlogs at the port from both private sector, commercial operators, as well as civil society groups, charitable organizations, and beneficiaries who were expecting various shipments in various sizes. And we were particularly concerned that this might delay the recovery of the economic recovery. So that's just the context in which you were invited. I would ask that maybe you commence by just giving an overview of the situation since Hurricane Melissa, and don't feel constrained because I understand that the Iran war would also have had implications for normal shipping schedules, rates, etc. So if you can start with a 5 to 10 minute overview of where we find ourselves. I see you have a slide presentation. I trust that will guide you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide some information on where we are. The presentation that was prepared, Chairman, was based on a set of questions that we received, which indicated the nature of the concerns or the issues that we were to discuss. Some of them were by way of understanding better the regulatory work of the Port Authority, the kinds of employment on the ports, what has been happening, what is the rated capacity of the ports, what is the actual utilization now, and so on. I think you have zeroed in on one set of questions which are predominant, which focus on the backlog. The situation as it relates to backlog, I want to provide one measure of clarity, sir, which is that we can look at congestion at the level of containers, and some persons import full container loads and export full container loads. The transshipment cargo also takes place in containers, and there are full container loads. And there are less than full container load, which are pallets of goods and barrels that are consolidated into single containers. These are usually the consolidated at warehouses, some of which are on the terminals, some of which are off the terminals. And then those goods, after the fees have been paid and the customs has done their work, would be discharged to the consumers, the importers. We don't have a problem and did not have a problem with full container load cargo at any point, sir. The congestion that exists relates to less than full container loads. And the slide on the screen answers one of the questions which had been asked, which is what accounts for the backlog or congestion. And what it indicates there, the slides aren't numbered. What the slide indicates, Chairman, is that the issue in the warehouses was caused by a confluence of factors, one of which was the impact of the hurricane. And if you look at the images at the top of the screen, Chairman, those are some images of what happened at the terminal and the warehouses in Montego Bay. As you know, the Hurricane Melissa entered at Black River and left somewhere just around Falmouth. And so Montego Bay in particular was badly hit, and the warehouses generally, both on the port and outside of the port, were impacted negatively by this. And you see the roofs having been removed from those. All of those images are for the warehouses that are at the port, Chairman. So we had to move quickly on the port to restore the use of the warehouses. The one on the left is very badly damaged. It's beyond the roof material, rafters and so on were damaged badly. It's as if a bomb had dropped on that warehouse. And so we're going to have to replace that warehouse. But the warehouse using in deconsolidating cargo and inspecting it lost a lot of roof, and we had to replace that. But within a couple of weeks, that was open. The Seaboard warehouse, which is off the terminal, but contributes a lot to the clearance of those goods, also was damaged, and repairs had to be done. The second issue that impacted on it was a surge of relief cargo, and that coincided with the Christmas peak volumes. Jamaicans as a whole tend to ship barrels to their relatives or to themselves during the Christmas peak. They start, and that normally picks up. We see the increase in volume for this less than full container load cargo from October to January, essentially, Chairman. And as you recall, the hurricane took place on the 28th. So we got a surge of new cargo, of persons sending in relief cargo, separate from household cargo. And that was compounded by the fact that what is rational, some persons would have put their relief cargo on top of the normal household cargo. And I think aside from the increased volume, there was some confusion because the government announced that some goods would receive waivers as a result of the relief effort. And I think that maybe some people who were sending barrels felt that if some of those goods were in the barrel, that means the barrel would get exemption. And when customs said no, it created somewhat of a problem. What has resulted possibly from that, but for other reasons, I won't speculate as to why it has happened, but what we have experienced is a much slower pace at which customers have come to clear barrels this year, Chairman. And that was true both in Kingston, where and the large number of warehouses are, and in Montego Bay. They just did not turn up at the same pace.
What we were told was that many people who had expected duty free or their barrels and so on to be treated as relief, and they didn't get it. They ended up just abandoning it, and therefore, I guess my question is, those would be permanently congesting unless there is some way of weeding out and disposing of these after a period of time. Is there? Can you describe that process to me? I imagine there must be a process.
Yes, yes, Chairman. That is covered on the following slide. There are a number of measures taken to try to deal with that backlog, aside from extending the hours and expanding the available storage for those, Chair, because we don't know which ones are abandoned and which ones are not abandoned. So the effort to try to deal with the surge was, the first wave was to extend the opening hours to allow people to come, give them a longer space and to create more storage space for it. But there are also waivers of the customs duty and tax waivers. All fees, storage fees were waived, Chairman, and the Port Authority worked to provide discounts for the demurrage. I've indicated those because those were the primary package of activities which took place, for example, in Kingston and helped to bring down the backlog in Kingston. We also, Chair, because of the reason that you have just articulated, worked with the Jamaica Customs Agency to identify. The Jamaica Customs Agency operates what is called the Queen's Warehouse, which is a government warehouse. And goods are allowed, as you have just indicated. After 14 days, those goods can be removed to a government warehouse. The truth is they don't generally move them after 14 days. It's more like a couple of months before they will move them. But because of the problem, we got additional warehousing space. So the King's Warehouse, as it is referred to, was extended. There was a King's Warehouse that was established in the Garmex complex, and there was a smaller one in Montego Bay. Remember, I told you that the warehousing space in Montego Bay was limited because everything was damaged, a lot of damage. It worked in Kingston, and they never really had to fill that warehouse. In Montego Bay now, Chairman, there's a joint initiative by PAJ, the Jamaica Customs Agency, and the port operator there to identify those cargo exceeding the regulatory dwell time. Customers and JCA has put out a notice to indicate that that goods are going to be removed to the King's Warehouse. They are being packaged now in containers. They will be brought, because the King's Warehouse with any space is in Kingston. They are going to be brought into Kingston. Customers would still have the opportunity to clear the goods if they come to pick them up. But those would be disposed of after the allowable time has passed, Chairman, which is a few months. I think the issue is 4 months. The date is 4 months. So that process is now in train, Chairman. We're going to be removing those older goods that have not been moved, which then we assume are what you say, Chairman, that they are abandoned, which will then clear up space in the warehouse to then clear more barrels. And we will continue this process. And we expect that within a month to a month and a half, this will resolve the problem, Chairman.
It just seems to me, though, that to go to the additional expense of trucking goods which may have been abandoned from Montego Bay to Kingston might not just make more sense to whatever the period of time that you can, under law, you're allowed to just dispose of them. Would it be disposed of at some auction or or something?
Yes, Chair. But first of all, that's a customs. That
It's a
decision
custom.
relies with customs. And customs is likely to follow the law. As I said, the law allows 4 months. So if you count 4 months, November, December, January, February, it would be goods that were here before February that would fall into that category. Plus the 14 days that is allowed for free time, plus the time before they were actually stripped. So I think the process is being done according with the law, Chair, and we'll try to do it as aggressively, but to inform people, to give them as much chance as possible
notice
to come in and clear the goods.
Okay. So the container, the transshipment or the full containers, there's no backlog outside.
There is no backlog that we know of with
normal operations.
Normal operations. Yeah.
And if you were to estimate, well, you've suggested that in another month and a half or so, even for the stripped or what do you call it, disaggregated cargo, that should return more or less to normal. But if we look at the last 6 months, at what level of backlog would we have been relative to normal? If you would normally clear, for example, just for laypersons, I don't know if there's a measure, but if the average clearance time would have been 30 days, say, for example, did it go to 90 days? Did it go to 60 days? Is there some measure that you can use to indicate how bad this backlog? Sometimes the perception is worse than it actually is when objectively measured.
So Chairman, what we know is that there are containers, consolidated containers, which have come in February that have not yet been not yet been stripped. That is a measure of sort of those goods would normally, under normal circumstances, have been cleared well before now, that are still there, and there would be customers who then have goods in those containers. And remember, by February, the normal Christmas peak would have gone and so on, right? So there are people who might have imported goods, assuming that they would have gotten through. And we are concerned that we get to those containers as quickly as possible to allow them to remove their goods.
And those are still in the boxes, in the containers themselves?
There are goods from February, I think it is the end of February, or sometime in February until now, which is the end of April.
So it must be incurring tremendous demurrage.
As I pointed out, we have waived waived all the statutory fees and so on, and the terminal has also waived fees.
Okay.
And we have tried to work with the shipping agent, the shipping lines, to explain the condition and to get as much
some
waived
concessions from them
concession
as well.
on the demurrage.
All right. You please. So go ahead.
Yeah, so Chairman, the other piece of your question, I think, I understood it to be implied at the end of your question was it's taking some time this time around. And what I would say is that our objective is to ensure that the next Category 5 that we might get later this year or whenever it comes or whenever the next hurricane comes, that we would be managing the process somewhat differently. Arising out of this, I think we found the meetings with all of the stakeholders immediately after the hurricane to be useful. We think this time around, the next time around, maybe we will do it before, so that and agree on the processes that we will adopt in the event that we have some of the same challenges. I think it is also important to note, Chairman, that there's evidence, some of it anecdotal, but other evidence that says people were shipping some of those same containers in February. maybe if the persons who were shipping knew that there was congestion at Montego Bay, they might have decided to ship their cargo through Kingston, and the shipping line can't make that decision. It's made by the customer. And so information about what is happening immediately after the hurricane in terms of capacity at the various locations would be an important issue, Chairman. We are looking at ways in which we can further automate some of the processes to ensure that we know where specific containers are and so on within the warehouses to allow for more effective management of the overall environment. So we are working on a program with the community in anticipation of this not being the last time we'll see anything like this, Chairman. Although the images that you saw there, we have never experienced it, certainly in the last 15 years.
Okay. Is this not your final slide? You have
No, I wasn't sticking to the slides, Chairman,
okay.
but if
so if you would like to pause now and allow
sure.
and take
Yes,
questions.
yes, Chair, because the others of it, as I say, ask about the capacities and...
Right, and we have that document.
And you have that here, so
Okay.
if there are questions from it, I'll answer them.
All right, members. Dr. Dawes.
Afternoon, Professor.
Afternoon, sir.
Why did it take so long? Why was it that the ports pretty much were at a standstill where exporters could not even get space to send out their goods, and it was a complete gridlock? Someone must have realized that this was what was happening. The government had sent out an SOS. The diaspora responded, different agencies responded. They did not know how to manage the process, so they were not taking into account the fees that were to be paid. And there was a pileup. At some point in time, there would have been a tipping point. Why was nothing done? Why did it take so long for the relevant ministers and technocrats to get involved to start the negotiations for the waivers with the shipping lines? What went wrong?
Well, I would say, Dr. Dawes, that you asked a couple of things. One, the negotiations with the shipping lines. I think the first order of business, that process began in January and February, Dr. Dawes, because it was recognized already that the demurrage charges were growing, and there were some shipping lines which gave 100%, some 50, some 25, and so on at different rates. So that process began quite early. In terms of your specific question about exports, as I pointed out to the chairman, we're not aware that if there are full container loads that are being exported, for example, by manufacturers or distributors, there was no challenge with full container loads going either way, coming in or coming out. It was really with deconsolidated cargo. So there may be some persons who were distributing or exporting in consolidated cargoes, but again, I am not aware of that being an issue. So the problem really was predominantly, as we understand it, Dr. Dawes, consolidated cargo coming in containers that had to be stripped, and the limited warehouse space was what is a real problem. And as soon as the warehouses were close to being full, that's when everybody jumped into action for that, Dr. Dawes. The expectation, if we had the normal velocity or the normal rate at which people would turn up to take out cargo, and that is measured, we have data on that goes back several years. This one was compounded because you got a surge of additional shipments being made, but people just not turning up to pick up the relief cargo or to pick up their normal domestic cargo for Christmas and so on. It was just a fraction of what it would normally have been. That may be due to a number of factors, Dr. Dawes. People may have whatever disposable income they had decided to use it other than coming to pick up the cargo. But then you have to make a decision about, abandoning or trying to move away those people's cargo, and they may come in. So we had to follow and be lenient as it relates to the time that people would have to come and do this. And ads were put in the newspaper to try to, and in the media generally, to try to get them to accelerate the pace of coming in, but it just hasn't happened. So there are other issues beyond the efficiency on the port that determine when persons come to pick up their cargo that were a major part of the problem.
Was ODPEM one of those consignees where there was a delay in the collection of the barrels and containers?
ODPEM had specific provisions for them, and I wouldn't say that they were a major problem. I think ODPEM itself had some issues about storage of full container loads. I don't think ODPEM, I'm not aware that ODPEM's problem was with the less than full container load problems, Dr. Dawes. I think that there were some persons who were consigning goods, relief goods to ODPEM, who did not follow the procedures that were required, and therefore there were other reasons for delay of the goods that were sent by some donor agencies and individuals sending containers of goods and so on to ODPEM, which would have caused a bit of a delay. But I'm not aware that ODPEM contributed in a large way to the problem with the less than full container load cargo.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of building the resilience for the future, one of the things that, from experience, I guess from burial the year before, when people would call me, sincere persons of goodwill, saying my church is doing a collection drive to send things down and so on, and I would try to explain that, the entire island hasn't been devastated, so we have on island capability to deliver relief supplies. The time it's going to take to do the community drive and aggregate and pack and ship in this busy time, it probably would be better to send funds to a charitable agency or so, which may have a more efficient. But of course, I guess we have a culture of sending barrels and so on. But I had the experience of seeing one of these containers, it was a 20-foot container, and with quite a variety of household goods, etc. But a big component of it was water, bottles of water, which, we had no shortage of it in Jamaica. And when I thought about the cost of shipping, because water is very heavy. The cost of filling a half of a container just with water, the value proposition was just not there. And I'm wondering if that could be part of the communication program, whether from the Port Authority, where it affects the ports and the cargo, or more generally from the government in terms of that type of situation, because to my mind, it was predictable.
So, Chair, I think that more information is going to be helpful to people making decisions. As you have said, there are ingrained habits. People want to send clothes or use things and or even food stuff. And what we found interesting, Chair, but don't ask me for aggregated data. What we know is that some people put food as a priority in the relief, but people were able, through the World Food Kitchen and these others, to get cooked meals. And so food was not as pressing an issue for them. But if you put food in containers from October, in March, very often you're going to be buying goods that are closer to expiration dates. Those kinds of things happen, Chair, and I don't know I mean, we have to learn from this experience because I can't say that this was as obvious a problem
Before.
before.
Mr. Newell?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Professor Shirley. To be frank, I can't imagine the level of work that your team would have had in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane. People with good intentions in the diaspora scrambling to try and ship things here. I just want an understanding of, because you spoke to full containers versus consolidated. When one of the companies that import barrels into Jamaica, for example, brings in a full container load, is that treated as a full container or is it treated as consolidated?
That's a consolidated container, which would then go to the warehouse. So the way it would work, sir, is that that container would, like all full container loads, be scanned, and then it would go to the warehouse where it would be deconsolidated. The pallets and barrels are taken out, and those are individually scanned again by Jamaica Customs Agency, and then placed on shelves to await the arrival of the customers to come in and to pay up their fees. Customs would probably, in the process of discharging it, also strip them again to look at what is in there and so on.
So again, from my understanding, the shipping company that brings in these items, they're not treated as the consignee. The individual purchasers or users, those are the ones who would be treated as the consignees.
So the freight forwarder was a person who would have that responsibility for the entire container.
Yes.
That person would be responsible to, when it comes, the moored charges and all those charges would be made against that person, and then they would allocate those to the individual persons who had packages in that container, sir. So yes, the freight forwarder would be responsible for the container, but the goods in there are for the individual persons to whom those barrels and packages were concerned.
In terms of the charges that are laid by the ports, what role, if any, does PAJ have in being able to waive or to influence the waiver of those charges?
So there is something called a storage fee, and that storage fee, MP Newell, is really intended to encourage people. There are, I think, 14 days, 10 or 14 days of free storage that the container can spend while you are, the paperwork and so on is being done to get the container cleared. And then after that, the demurrage starts being charged. And also there's storage. So there's the demurrage, which is the fee for keeping the shipping lines container, and there is storage for keeping that container taking up space in the port after 14 days.
I wanted to
Those
distinguish
fees
between the
are
shipping line charges.
Sir?
I wanted to distinguish between the shipping lines charges
Yes.
and the ones that
So the ones for the containers staying longer than the allowed time on the port is charged, some of it by PAJ and some by the port operator. And those charges, both of them were waived in full.
So both charges were waived in full for any specific
For storage,
period?
yes.
For any specific period?
Up to this point, we are not charging for those containers.
Or you're still not charging?
Yes.
All right, so I'll communicate with you directly after, because I have a complaint from an entity, a group of persons in the diaspora, a registered non-government organization, which has racked up significant charges on 3 40-foot containers of relief items brought in. It is very encouraging to hear that there has been a waiver. I think there were some issues that caused these items, which arrived December 1st, to have been on the port for a significantly long time. And so I'll communicate further after.
Yes, sir. And as you can imagine already in your description of it, there are certain peculiarities to that case. So these things are dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
Understood.
To understand fully what is being done. But the idea is to try, we understand the impact of what has transpired. So that is, the government charges certainly are the ones that we have, the portion that we have waived all, and we have encouraged the terminals to waive those. I suspect the bigger part of those storage is the demurrage charges.
In terms of the push to transform Jamaica into a logistics hub,
Yes, sir.
were there any lessons learned from this experience that can assist, maybe 7, but were there any lessons learned from this experience that could guide or assist in that thrust?
Well, yeah, I think that I think that when we speak of Jamaica as a logistics hub, sir, we are talking about its growth as an importer and exporter, as a processor of goods that are going to be held for re-export. I think that the issue of how we make our warehouses more efficient at the level of individual pallets and how we manage those warehouses, I think there are lessons that we would very definitely have learned for that. For the larger objective, and in the paper we outline some of the investments that are being made and the objectives for the next 5 to 10 years, the question asked. Those are, let's say, at a different level, both in terms of the type of goods that we are working with at that point, sir. And the lessons may not be focused so much on those as on the warehouses where we have to manage these goods for the domestic cargo.
Understood.
Mr. Mitchell, your mic is on. Were you trying to add something to? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to share some information because I listened to my colleague ask a question Professor Shirley would have asked, but as someone who has some amount of knowledge, I wouldn't say much. But I just want to say to my colleague, I would have loved to hear from him the entity, the NGO that says that they have racked up an amount of monies as it relates to the 3 containers. If they would have broken it down so that we understand, because rightly, the demurrage goes to the shipping line. How you're going to get that wave is something that we may not be able to do because the shipping line are really international. The storage, on the other hand, is where PAJ, the wharf, the warehouse handlers, because it can be private bonded or it can be public. And so we have to pay attention to that. So just giving us a lump sum tends to not shed enough light as to how to treat the situation. I do hear you, Mr. Professor, that it is a case by case, which I would encourage you to liaison, because we have the situation wherein Melissa came, there was a time span in which you're to do, people catch on midway, people catch on at the end, almost at the end, but they are seeking to get, even though the time would have elapsed and government would have said, okay, there's a cutoff time. You find that a shipment coming out of New York takes 3 to 4 weeks by way of ship to get here, as against a Miami shipment, which takes a couple days. And so we have to pay attention to that just the same. Also, the containers that come directly to a consignee gets easier clearance than the shipment that comes in a container for a number of persons. Reason being, the warehouse may not have enough space to strip what we call stripping a container, and so you're in line. So one shipping agent may have 10 containers, but according to how they come off the ship, how they number them, you'll find that you're in line and you'll get one ship today and none until another week. And so we have to be mindful of that. So I would have loved if the information that is passed here through you would have said, okay, they say we owe $10 in demurrage and another $10 in storage, as against what duty you would be paying.
Because
The question was
Thanks.
asking the member to break it
no,
down.
I think my colleague was attempted to answer my question or to seek clarity to assist. I'm not sure, but as I have more than a passing knowledge of shipping and how shipping works. I don't think he's aware. The charges, I'm told, relate specifically to storage. But as I indicated, because I think we as Parliament also have a duty to inform. So it's not that I didn't know how consolidation works, but based on some complaints I get, I understand that there are persons watching, viewing, who may not know how that works. I'm also very clear, which is why I said let's distinguish the charges that are for the shipping line from those that are for the port.
Yes.
So we have established that. That was already established. Now, in terms of the specifics of this matter, Professor Shirley, I will discuss further with you and your team.
Yes, sir.
Perhaps get some contact information so that you can adjudicate on whether they did something that was outside of that may have caused the charges, or whether the charges were slipped through and should have been waived and it can be moved along. But in terms of the specifics of the entity, I am choosing not to go into that in this discussion. But I still felt the discussion was useful in terms of educating the public on how this works. But I'm a customer of yours. I am actually an importer. So I have a basic understanding.
Yes, sir. And if I could just say very briefly, Chairman, as it relates to storage, I just want to clarify one other thing. And I think MP Clark had pointed out that there are different types of warehouses. Some are off the port. The portion that the PAJ would have any control over would be the period while they are on the port. So if a container is cleared but goes to be deconsolidated off the port, that entity might charge its own storage in their warehouse. We have no control over that, Chairman.
Prof, yesterday we had the acting commissioner of customs, and I know the efficiency of our ports are not entirely within your regulation, because customs is an important partner in the process. But the data that's now collected essentially real time under the ASICUDA system would be very useful for both public sector planners and private sector planners to inform, for example, demand, investment decisions, etc. We were told that all that data is sent to Statin, and oftentimes it takes a long time for Statin to publish the relevant data. Does the Port Authority, as regulator, do you collect data on the types of goods, for example, various, I think what they call it, tariff headings, the categories of goods, whether it be foods, various types of food stuff, building materials, whatever. Does the Port Authority collect any of this data, or that would be entirely with the customs?
I think customs has far more data than we have, but we also have something called the port community system that works along with Asekuda, Chairman, and there is some information. We tend to focus more on the productivity and the movement of those and the clearance times and so on, but there is some information that is available, yes.
I guess in
And we also pass that on. What the information that we have, we generally don't publish the specifics of what is in the containers, but that information would be made available to Staten for their consolidation and
So in terms of your information here, where you split it out between Kingston Freeport Terminal, for example, and the Freeport terminals versus the wharves, the transshipment business is what goes through the Freeport terminals, or is that a combination of transshipment and local terminate, or boxes that will terminate locally?
so in Kingston Freeport Terminal, about 90% of the cargo that is handled is transshipment.
Okay.
However, if you look at those numbers here, you will see that even that 10% is a very large number relative, because the volume it handles is much greater than Kingston Wharves, and it is much greater again than Montego Bay. So both of them handle
10% of Kingston Freeport Terminal would be about the total of Kingston Wharves.
yes. So it still handles the largest amount of domestic cargo, Chairman, but a large part of what they do is transshipment.
And
Kingston Wharves is different in the sense that they don't only handle containers. Everything at KFTL is containerized, with very small exceptions. Whereas at Kingston Wharves, it's a mixed-use terminal. They do containers, they do cars, they do bulk, they do a variety of things.
roll on, roll off.
Roll on, roll off, yes, sir. Steel, lumber, and that don't come as containerized goods.
But just in terms of the potential for growth in the business, the transshipment is the primary area of potential growth.
Well, the truth,
I assume, I know talk of when the logistics hub
yes.
gets going, but in the meantime, in the short term, the main potential area of growth is transshipment. I'm asking that as a question. Is that the main potential area of growth?
I think the objective is to have growth in the terminal, and these are different businesses, so to speak, Chairman. I think that shipping lines will go to ports that have the capacity to handle transshipment, but they are also driven by domestic cargo. And the truth is that if you look at the kinds of terminals against which we compete, like in Colombia and Dominican Republic, one of the advantages that they have is that they have a large domestic cargo, the domestic load compared to Jamaica. So the economics of that would favor those, because they have this large amount of cargo that is going to be left there, against which they will get all the charges and the mortgage and so on, which they're not going to get on the transshipment. So.
And that's just a challenge of size of our country and economy.
Yes, sir. And the more that we produce, the more that we manufacture, the more that we transform goods in our country and re-export them.
That will
generate value of an economic nature. It also helps the ports, it helps the logistic companies. So that is why there's a focus on that other component as well, Chairman.
I am aware of a manufacturer in Barbados, and they're plagued, they say, because of that very reason, that container ships often bypass. They're scheduled, but because there's some congestion in the port, there's some cruise ships or something that would force them to stand off for a few hours. And when they look at the amount of boxes they have, they just bypass and continue to Trinidad or wherever. So I know it's a challenge for smaller, it's a big challenge for smaller islands, but I guess the mass gives you some advantage in terms of your domestic market, even in the transshipment areas, is your point.
And bear in mind that you're now talking about a different aspect of it, Chairman, which is that most of the ports in the region would be import-export terminals, right? They are mixed use in that, as you have pointed out, most of them do cruise as well. So they would look a lot like the port that we have in Montego Bay. Montego Bay does cruise, it does cargo, it does containers, it does everything. Whereas the two in Kingston
Are much more specialized.
And so the statistics that you see for those ports are very different. What the ports that we compete against, as I've told you, are, they would look a lot more like the ones in Kingston, sir.
All right. Any final questions for Prof and team? If not, it's just for me to thank you, Prof, and your team. Thank you, PS, and all those who have attended. I think it's been a very informative day, certainly for me, and I believe it would help our public generally to understand some of the nuances of and reasons why the delays would have occurred, etc. So maybe you get less cussing when as people better understand the inputs and the causes for the delays. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and share with the committee and through this committee to the public. Members, we are, and you're free to either remain, but we're just wrapping up now, or you can leave at any time. Members, we have completed item 7. Any other business? If not, it's just to set the date for the next meeting. Sorry? First of all, let me find out what dates are available. And the second thing is what's the next areas that we want to examine. So under first, while we check out available dates, under AOB, we had said earlier, and just for the benefit of those who may not have been here at the start, we had determined that it wasn't necessary to send 2 reports to Parliament, the Hurricane Melissa report and the annual report, as the annual report largely 80% or 90% of it was about the same Hurricane Melissa recovery hearings that we'd had. So we had determined we would just send the annual report, which covered quite adequately all of that. Any other suggestions for the next topics to enter? Sorry? Well, the PAC is already examining that. I wouldn't enter upon that reference. So you want to have another round of examining the recovery at this phase? Okay. Oh, sorry. You use your mic, please. Yeah.
I would love a conversation with HAJ, the Housing Agency of Jamaica, especially as it relates to settlements and the state of infrastructure and what their plans are and what is being done to upgrade some of the infrastructure.
So if it was the Housing Agency of Jamaica, that's under your ministry, PS? So we're agreed? If we're...
Put it.
Sorry?
We'll put it to the team. Put it to the members.
Member Newell has suggested that we ask the Housing Agency of Jamaica any other suggestions? If not, I put and roofs program.
Yes, Chairman. I think it is time that we ask the roofs program, the shelter program, and the solidarity program. All of these programs that
They're all under the Ministry of
Labor and Social Security.
and
yes.
Social Security.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the suggestions are for the next meeting, which we haven't set the date yet, we'll invite the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and their related relief programs to give us an update, and the housing Agency of Jamaica. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Those against? The ayes have it. And in terms of the date of next meeting, what's the available date? The 20th looks to be a convenient available date, as in 3 weeks' time. So can we agree that we'll meet 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 20th of May? And that gives enough time to those agencies to prepare. The Ministry of Labor relief efforts to roofs, solidarity, and whatever the Ministry of Labor post-hurricane relief programs. Yes, Mr.
I want to tender my apologies from now. The 20th of May, I have the opening of, where's the camera? The opening of the Robbins Bay Road in the morning, and my sectoral debate presentation in the afternoon, and the Minister of Tourism has confirmed that he's coming. It's being driven by his office, so I will be unavoidably absent.
So, since you are the member who had suggested the HAJ, I would like to accommodate you. What's the name?
27.
All right. Is in as a courtesy to Member Newell, can we do the 27th then? The 27th of May instead? We're all agreed? The 27th of May, 10 a.m. Thank you very much. There being no other business, can I have a motion for the termination of the meeting? Member Hines and Mr. Clark. Thank you for seconding the motion for terminating the meeting. Those in favor? All right. Meeting is over. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's Wednesday, April 29th. In the headlines, chaos in Parliament as opposition member of Parliament is suspended over May's protest. Parliament passes National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority bill after marathon debate. In business news, we have your usual market updates. Regionally, regional leaders are pushing against gun trafficking with workshop. And in sports, FIFA boosts World Cup payouts to $871 million amid rising costs concerns. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Chaos briefly halted proceedings in Jamaica's Parliament Tuesday night after Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Southwestern Angela Brown Burke was suspended following an incident involving the ceremonial mace during a debate on the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority bill, the NARA bill. The confrontation unfolded during a sitting of the Committee of the Whole House, forcing a temporary suspension.
Members, I name Angela Brown Burke and ask that she be removed from the chamber. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Member outside.
House Speaker Juliet Holness ruled that the MP's actions breached parliamentary rules, warning that the mace, Parliament's symbol of authority, must never be handled in protest.
Member, at no time can you grab the mace in Parliament. Not even in jest, member. And not in protest either, Member Burchell.
Despite repeated instructions, the opposition MP resisted removal and attempted to address the House before being escorted out.
Those in favor? Madam Speaker. Those against? Those against? No, that's not allowed.
The incident overshadowed debate on the NARA bill, which aims to establish a national body to coordinate disaster recovery and resilience efforts. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness later called for calm, urging members to preserve the dignity of the House. The sitting was suspended for 5 minutes before lawmakers resumed deliberations. The National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Act was passed in the House of Representatives on Wednesday morning, clearing the way for the government to accelerate rebuilding efforts following Hurricane Melissa. Following a marathon debate which ended minutes before 2 a.m., the bill was approved with 20 amendments after more than 8 hours of often heated debate which began Tuesday afternoon and spilled into the night. Opposition leader Mark Golding and his members called multiple division votes, all defeated by the government's majority, but secured several amendments, arguing the bill needed stronger transparency and accountability provisions.
I'm suggesting that the words in the new provision, which is persons affected or likely to be affected by the implementation of a project, could be added as a catch-all to the new provision. So it could say, discuss projects, programs, and plans with representatives of non-governmental organizations and vulnerable groups, including women, persons, the elderly, and children, youth, and any other persons affected or likely to be
but not
affected.
limited to. That's what I was suggesting.
But you're right.
But the opposition leader's point carries.
Government MP Marlene Malahoo Fort also raised concerns during the clause-by-clause review.
Clause is now being amended to include the private sector projects, and the register speaks to the name and description of the project. With the inclusion of the private sector side, should it include the developer or those who are behind the private sector project in that register?
The clause indicates that other particulars can be prescribed. All right, I think that is clear. So these are in relation to national strategic projects. I wouldn't specifically put in the legislation that the developer must be included, but the name, the description, and clearly other particulars can be prescribed. That's my view on it.
The government insists that the law is necessary for a swift and coordinated response to the estimated $12.2 billion in damage caused by the hurricane, maintaining that sufficient safeguards are in place. Closing the debate, the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, sought to ease concerns over oversight while urging cooperation in the national interest. The NARA will be tasked with leading major reconstruction and developing projects, including infrastructure expansion and fast-tracking key investments under the government's Fast Jamaica initiative. Jamaican students could soon be earning and gaining real work experience before they even graduate. The Heart NSTA Trust has launched its new tertiary Learn, Earn and Prosper program, aimed at helping students move seamlessly from the classroom into the workforce through part-time employment while studying.
What if you could start earning and building your career before you even graduate? That future is closer than you think. The Heart NSTA Trust is changing how young people move from school to work with its new initiative, the Tertiary Learn, Earn and Prosper LEAP program, and it could be a game changer. For years, students have faced this issue. Graduate and hope to find a job. LEAP is here to interrupt that. Through this pilot initiative, students enrolled in accredited tertiary institutions will get the chance to work part-time in real jobs while still studying. LEAP aims to connect you with opportunities that align with your career goals, helping you transition seamlessly from lecture hall to professional life. But the opportunities don't stop there. As Jamaica ramps up major infrastructure and development projects, the government is also investing in young people who want to build businesses, not just careers. Enter the Contractor Incubator Program. This initiative will support graduates of the Heart NSTA Trust and the University of Technology, equipping them with advanced technical training, business development support, and access to concessional financing with the Development Bank of Jamaica.
The National Reconstruction Program under NARA will require thousands of skilled tradespeople, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, masons, roofers, and the capacity to train them at scale and at speed. The Heart Trust NSTA will train construction-related tradespersons who can assist in the Building and Resilience Initiative, as well as propelling the expansion of various sectors.
Even better, participants won't just train.
The intent is to have Jamaicans gain experience on high-value public infrastructure projects and transition faster into sustainable employment and enterprise.
In a major move to expand access, the government is also removing one of the biggest obstacles to skills training: cost.
Our mission to expand access to opportunity through skills training is not yet complete. I shall now complete that mission. In the coming financial year, tuition for all Heart NSTA Trust programs up to level 5, note that this is a bachelor's degree, will be abolished for Jamaicans in the most challenging circumstances.
The message is clear. Jamaica is investing in its youth, not just to find jobs, but to create opportunities, build industries, and shape the future. So the question is, are you ready to learn, earn, and prosper?
In the business report, revenues at Jamaica's two main international airports declined during the first quarter of the year, largely due to the impact of Hurricane Melissa. The airports, Sangster International and Norman Manley International, recorded a combined drop of just over $8 million. Earnings from flight operations fell by more than $6 million, while revenue from food concessions also declined. The downturn has been linked to reduced passenger traffic, with Sangster International Airport recording a sharp fall in arrivals, while Norman Manley International Airport also saw a slight decline. Officials note to RJR News that these figures do not yet reflect the potential impact of current tensions in the Middle East, which began late February. The drop in passenger numbers highlights continued challenges facing the tourism and aviation sectors in the wake of recent disruptions. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica says it's currently conducting an island-wide counting and recording of basic information on all residential dwellings. Statin added that the current exercise is important because after the completion of a population census, new houses are built, people relocate, and the structure of communities change. The agency also says the capturing of these changes is important to the updating of its database, while adding that it helps to build a strong, accurate foundation for planning and delivering the public goods and services that the population will need in the future. Let's hear what's happening in the stock exchange and forex market from Denise Williams.
For the trading period of April 28, 2026, the most actively traded securities were Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited with 4,308,516 units, representing 26.51% of market sales activities. Kentire Holdings Jamaica Limited with 2,873,737 units, representing 17.68% of market sales activities. Woodcats International Limited with 891,932